Welcome, welcome, welcome. Time zone here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. Of course, here we talk about all things financial literacy. Of course, as you come in the room, make sure you meet me, make sure you greet me, tell me hello. I want to know maybe what area you're listening in from, all that good stuff here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. We are a team. And of course, we're looking to build that team. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you share the live. We have an awesome conversation on today, and I'm excited about jumping into this conversation and seeing what you all have to say about it. You know, this is pretty interesting subject that we're going to deal with on today. And of course, you already see that title on that conversation that we're having on today, the Petrodollars economic impact. This is interesting. I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your thoughts on this petrodollar economic impact. What is the petrodollar? And so those are some of the things that you can feed and flood the chat section with as we go through this deep dive together. I am literally going to study this with you so that we can see what the petrodollar is and its economic impact on our society, on America, as the world as a whole. So this is going to be pretty interesting to see what you all have to say. Good morning to you, Mr. Tony Sherman and Kashana Johnson. Happy to have you tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training on today. So what is the petrodollar? Can anybody in that comment section just tell me, what is the petrodollar? What have you heard of it? Have you ever heard of it? You may say, I don't know what that is. And you can put IDK, I don't know. And so if that's what it is for you, then that's what it is. But I'm interested to hear, what is your history or your knowledge when it comes to the petrodollar on today? We're going to talk about it and how it personally affects you. We're going to do a deep dive, and you'll be able to see how does this impact me? It might help you understand certain things that are going on economically with America. It may help you understand things that are going on, whether it's in Iran or Venezuela. It's going to be very, very interesting, and I can't wait to hear y'all feedback on this. And so hold on, buckle up, get your popcorn ready. You already know what to do here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. Turn me up in your Bluetooth, turn me up in on your YouTube channel, put me on the TV, wherever it is. Bring the family in. We are going to talk about the petrodollar on today. And so I'm excited about this conversation on today. And so let's dive into it. All right. So who knows? All right. Tony Sherman's honest. He's like, okay, I'm not quite sure. I don't know too much about the petrodollar. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're here for here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. We want to know about this petrodollar, its impact, and why we need to know about it. The petrodollar system, it is a complete system, ladies and gentlemen. The petrodollar system, it is basically where global oil is priced and traded primarily in US dollars. Ooh, think about that. I want you all to really just grasp that concept right there alone. The global oil is priced and traded primarily using the US dollars, the American money. And it has provided several major advantages to the United States over the past decades. You all make sure you share the live. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. And so there are some benefits of the petrodollar. Can you imagine if you had a certain currency, you had a dollar, and with this currency that you have, whether it's a dollar or your own cryptocurrency, as y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, and the world globally agreed, you know what? We're going to use the Shauna Johnson dollar. We're going to use the Johnson dollar to make everything happen, to make a majority of our trades. We're going to use the Sherman cryptocurrency to make sure that everyone can buy what they need. Think about that. Yvette Steele, good morning to you, my beautiful wife, tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Can you imagine If you had a certain cryptocurrency or currency that represented you, that represented your wallet, that represented your pockets, your bank accounts, your economic empire that you've built over the years, imagine there being that and the world globally agreeing we're going to use your money to make trades concerning oil. Oh, this is getting so good. So the petrodollar system is where global oil is priced and traded primarily using the US dollar. So you understand where there's big benefits, great benefits, if everybody's agreeing to use your money, to use your currency. And so we got Shauna saying petro, US dollar, paid to oil exporting to exchange for oil. And so let's go deeper with this. There's a strong global demand for the US dollar because of this. So think about this. If there is oil that I want to go buy, and understand that the world needs oil to function. If there's oil that I want to go buy, and the only way I can get it is using the US dollar, then I need to have some US dollars in my reserve. I need to have some US dollars in my bank account. I need access to that currency so I can make transactions. We're talking about the Petrodollars economic impact on the world on today as you tune in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. And so we're going to slow walk this thing because I want you all to grasp this chess move, this financial chess move that America is using strategically so that our economy can be strong, so that our economy can be powerful. We got Tony Sherman says BRIC country want to change to euro. So you understand there are some people who are in opposition of this. There are some people that may not like the fact that primarily many people use the US dollar to trade and to be able to buy oil. Now, because countries need dollars to buy oil, they must hold large reserves of US dollars. And of course, this creates constant global demand for the American money. And so it helps keep the US dollar stable. So our economy is staying strong. Our economy stays very, very powerful because we have people circulating the US dollar. And so think about this. I've come here on Coach Steele's Finance Training plenty of times, and I've talked about creating your own economy, learning how to circulate the dollar amongst your people and things like that. And so this gets very, very interesting as we look at the fact that America has created this economy, has created a way to circulate its dollar around the world and back to America. Now, we haven't gotten to that part. If they are trading oil using the US dollar, how does that dollar get back to America? Has America created this powerful economy to circulate the US dollar around the world? The petrodollars economic impact on the world. And so this creates constant global demand for the dollar and keeps the dollar strong and stable. Now, the US benefits from having the world's dominant currency. See, now the US benefits from having the world's dominant currency. And we have the ability to borrow at lower cost. If people want your dollar, if people need your dollar, you have the ability to now leverage that and borrow at a lower cost. So many people want your currency. Foreign governments and investors, they often recycle the petrodollar into US assets like treasury bonds. This increased demands for US debt. So basically, other countries will buy our debt. And when they continue to buy our debt and we are able to pay them, it keeps the interest rates lower than they might otherwise be because people want our debt so bad. And they want our debt, they invest in it because they need the US dollar anyway. So as a result, the US can finance deficits more easily and cheaply. Now, this is getting interesting, guys, because I want you to understand that other countries want our dollar so that they can buy oil. They also now have a bunch of US dollars. So what do? Do you just sit on that money? What are you going to do if you're another country and you have all of those US dollars? Think about it. And so I want you to understand this helps America have global financial influence. The dollar's central role in oil trade strengthens U.S. influence over the global financial system. Many international transactions pass through U.S. banks, and the U.S. has leverage in the global economic policies. So this is getting very interesting because what are you going to do with these U.S. dollars? As y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training, you have to figure out what are they going to do with all of this U.S. money that they have sitting around. So, as a result, greater economic and geopolitical power has happened. Now, there's some trade advantages too. So now think about this. If oil is priced in dollars, the U.S. doesn't face currency exchange risk when purchasing energy. Other countries have to convert their currency into our currency. The U.S. can operate more efficiently in global trade. As a result, it's a built-in advantage for international markets. Now, you have to understand the printing power that we have here now as well. The U.S. can issue currency that is used worldwide. Other countries hold and use U.S. dollars. This effectively allows the U.S. to export its currency. Now you are exporting your currency through currency. The U.S. gains real goods and services in exchange for paper currency. And you have to understand a lot of countries are now reinvesting because they have piles and so much U.S. dollars that they need to buy oil that they need. They have to find something to do with all of the extra money that they have. And so the petrodollar from other countries are usually reinvested back into our stock market. We're talking about petrodollar's economic impact on the world. So now other countries invest in our stock market. Other countries buy real estate in America. That's why you see certain people say, oh man, this country and this country, they own real estate in America. What are they going to do with these US dollars? They're buying real estate in America and they buy treasury securities. So they reinvest the dollar back into America. It comes right back to us. And so increased liquidity and strength in American financial market. That's what ends up happening. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, how did this happen? How did this come to be? Why in the world would other countries around the world make the US dollar primarily the currency to buy oil? Why would they do this? How does this benefit them? So as you're tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training on today, my question to you is, why do you think other countries around the world agreed to this? Why would they agree to make the US dollar the primary currency to trade oil in? I'll wait. Let me see that comment section. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Why do you believe it? Why do you think they agreed to this? And I want you all to know, while the benefits are significant for America, reliance on the petrodollar system also comes with the risk. So dependence on global markets, potential challenges if countries shift away from the dollar. Now, they all agreed to this. I'm asking you why, but what if they all of a sudden shift and say, we don't want to do this anymore? We're out. We don't want to play this game anymore, America. What is the impact on us? Is that positive or negative? In that comment section, is that positive or negative if other countries say we don't want to play this game of the US dollar being the primary currency to buy this commodity? All right, we got Tony Sherman says he has no idea. He's not sure about it. Nothing wrong with that. That's why we're learning right here on Coach Steele's finance training. How did this come to be? This is so interesting. And once you realize why and how this happened, I think it's going to give you a different perspective on America and how America moves throughout the world. But I want you to understand that the petrodollar system has helped position the United States at the center of global finance, providing economic strength, borrowing power, and worldwide influence. Now, let's go a little bit further. I'm going to show you all, I'm going to share my screen with you because I want you to understand how the petrodollar came to be. Because the petrodollar didn't just happen by accident. It's not all of a sudden we woke up and all of a sudden it was here. So let me make sure I can share my screen with you all because I want to give you a quick history lesson. Let's see here. All right. All right, I'm waiting on some of y'all in that comment section. Do you know why? All right. Boom, quick history lesson. All right, let me supersize. Now it says Arab oil embargo, temporary cessation of oil shipments from the Middle East to the United States. The Netherlands, Portugal, Rhodesia, and South Africa imposed by oil-producing Arab countries in 1973 in retaliation for the support of Israel during the Yom Kippur War. Now, all of a sudden, the embargo on the United States was lifted eventually in March 1974 through the embargo on other countries remained in place for some time afterward. So what you have to understand is the Arab oil embargo, it temporarily said they were going to stop selling oil to the United States back in 1973. Now, this is interesting, guys, as y'all are looking at this. 1973, there was a war going on between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and it's called the Yom Kippur War. Well, the United States, ladies and gentlemen, decided to help out and assist Israel. And when they decided to help out Israel, that is when Saudi Arabia decided not to sell oil to the United States. When Saudi Arabia decided not to sell oil to the United States, it was no good. It was no bueno. It was very, very, very bad for the United States. Now, when this became bad for the United States, oil prices went up like crazy in America. There were all type of issues in America financially when it comes to these oil prices. So what America had to do was figure out how to make this situation right. So at this point in time, when we're looking at 1973, you have to understand that America did not have this petrodollar economic impact and leverage that it had. But then when we get to 1974, we get to see what happens. And I want you all to understand this made as well. How did all of this come to be? And so this is a quick history lesson. Let's see here. Let me share my screen so you all can see. Let's see here. All right. We'll enlarge this. All right. Let me make sure that you all can see that on your end. Perfect. Okay, 1974, amid an oil crisis and skyrocketing prices due to OPEC sanctions, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia struck a deal. Remember 1973, it got bad for America. They had to figure something out. Saudi Arabia said no more oil for you. Then, under this agreement, Saudi Arabia agreed to sell its oil exclusively in US dollar in exchange for military aid, for equipment, and protection from the United States. This ensured a steady flow of oil to the US and market for its debt, while Saudi Arabia received security assurances and economic support. And so Saudi Arabia leveraged, pulled a move with that commodity, that oil, and said, hey, we'll cut you off. 1973, 1974, we see an agreement made. Hey, America is saying we'll give you military aid, we'll give you equipment and protection. And so now there's some bargaining going on. It kind of goes back to before there was currency, how people would trade, and what's that word I'm looking for? Starts with a B. They would trade, not bargain. It'll come to me. One of you all write it in the comment section. But you have to understand this is how this came to be. So now when we talk about this petrodollar, you understand how the petrodollar came to be. A deal was made with Saudi Arabia. So now we have this deal in place, and everyone's this petrodollar. And so now with everyone agreeing to use this petrodollar, and it has become the norm for decades and decades, you have to understand that there's possibly a threat. So there are certain countries that would prefer not to use the US dollar currency to trade oil. This is going to get interesting. So in that comment section, what countries do you all believe do not want to use the US dollar to trade oil? I want you to take a wild guess. Just name maybe 2 countries that would rather not want to use the US dollar to trade oil. Oh, this is going to get so good. Because what we're doing is we are connecting the dots, ladies and gentlemen. We are connecting the dots here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. And we're going to walk this thing down. What 2 countries do you all believe does not desire to trade and sell oil using the US dollar? I'm going to give you one of them. There's multiple, but I'm going to give you 2 that I want to talk about on today. We got Tony Sherman saying China and Brazil. Somebody in that comment section, write in Venezuela. Russia. Nice. Good homework. Let's see if I can spell Venezuela. We got Venezuela. What just happened with Venezuela and America? What just happened with Venezuela and the United States? Venezuela sells its oil primarily through the state-owned company PDVSA. And Venezuela is relying on heavy, discounted crude sales to China and more recently, sanction-exempt sales to the U.S. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting as y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Remember the United States took someone out of Venezuela? Who did the United States take from Venezuela and brought them to America? Now, the primary market for Venezuela, you have to understand, China is the largest buyer, often receiving crude as repayment for debts. Shipments are also sent to the U.S. and to Europe, with Spain's restful increasing its role. Exactly, Tony Sherman. So the United States took the president of Venezuela and removed the president from Venezuela. Now, there's a certain company in America that it has its foot financially and business in Venezuela and benefits greatly from the oil business in Venezuela. That company is called Chevron. Now, if y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, y'all have heard me talk about the oil companies and looking at investing in them more recently than ever, just because of everything that's going on in the marketplace. And I've been showing you all different charts and things like that going on with the market and with those different stocks. And so I want you all to understand that Chevron has a lot going on in Venezuela. So let me share that Chevron chart with you all as well. Let's see. I'm going to share that Chevron chart so you all can see what's going on, and so that it'll make more sense to you. We got Tony Sherman, who says and confirms that America took the president of Venezuela, and we know that that happened January 3rd. Now we're looking at the Chevron chart right now. Chevron stock symbol CVX. Chevron stock symbol CVX. All right, so that's what we're looking at. Now we know that the president of Venezuela, and of course Chevron has a lot of presence in Venezuela. The company Chevron has maintained a presence in Venezuela since 1923, operating 4 onshore and offshore joint ventures with state-owned PDVSA. Now, I want you all to understand, following the U.S. sanction easing, Chevron expanded its footprint in April 2026 of this year via an asset swap to focus on heavy oil producing roughly 260,000 barrels per day. This production is largely imported to the U.S. to help lower domestic gasoline prices. We're talking about the petrodollar economic impact on the world. So now when I go to this Chevron stock chart and we look at it, when I go over here at the bottom part, and I hope that you all can see that down there. Let me make sure that you all can see this. I want you all to look at that date. It says January 2nd, 2026, that Chevron opened at $152.17. $152.17 per share. That was January 2nd. Now, we also know the president of Venezuela was taken January 3rd, 2026. Now, when I go to January 3rd, we opened January 2nd, $1.52. When I go to January 5th, all of a sudden we're at $1.65. 3 days later, after Venezuelan president is taken, we are up 152 to 165, $13. Let's keep going. The rest of January, 167, 169. We see this chart. It just continues to go up. $183.94. What if you had shares of Chevron back in early January? All of a sudden, it just keeps going up ever since the United States made that move in Venezuela, to the point that it went to $213.26. That's over $50+ a share. So someone who had been investing in Chevron for years and years, or just dollar cost average of spending money, invested in this company, all of a sudden, from January to March 30th, in 3 months time frame, you are up. Now, of course, right now it's trading around $181 a share, but that's still up almost $30 from early January 2nd. What I'm trying to share with you all on today is we have a company here that has went up in value drastically, and they're based in Venezuela, which is a country that would prefer not to trade US dollars for oil. Now, that's one country. There's another country that would prefer not to sell their oil in US dollars. Can anybody guess what that other country is right now that does not want to have people come buy their oil using US dollars? Come on, in that comment section. This is easy. This is a no-brainer. Y'all, you have to be able to figure this out. Venezuela didn't want to do it. The president was taken. What's the name of that other country? Thank you, Leslie. This is a no-brainer. Now, thank you so much. So you have to understand, when the president is talking, he's talking. And so he's saying certain things about certain countries because he's planning on making certain moves and adjustments based on their actions and activities. And if you can listen with your ears and understand what's being said, then you can learn where to move your money financially to benefit you. Now, on Coach Steele's Finance Training, about a month or so ago, I talked to you all about how things can be going on in the marketplace. There can be war going on, but people are going to benefit financially from it. If you pay attention, if you listen, then the war does not, or violence or politics and all of that, you don't have to be a victim of it, but you can be victorious in those situations. And that's why it's so important that you subscribe to Coach Steele's Finance Training, because you need to adjust your mind on how you hear certain things, how you receive certain things. And I want to get back to what Leslie Moore just said, but I just want to remind you, on Coach Steele's Finance Training, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training, you can go back and watch these videos. And so let me see if I can get you all to what I'm talking about here. So when I talk to you all about the war that's going on, of course, you see videos like war plus oil equal money, how wars have increased oil prices and the benefits of it. And so what I want you all to understand is you all can get and gain information, and you don't have to be the victim of all of these things going on, but you can learn how to financially benefit from these things that are going on, just like other people. But anyway, I'm going to get off the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Thank you, Leslie. So Iran does not want to, and is strongly, vocally confident about saying we don't want to use US dollars for people to come buy our oil. Now, with that being said, we see what's happening to Iran right now, right? So now let's go a little bit further. Let's see what was said earlier this year. We're just doing a little history here, guys, here on Coach Steele's Finance Training, a little history lesson, doing some research together. That's all. Make sure you do your own due diligence. It says the U.S. global order has long rested on oil being traded in dollars. From the Nixon era through the 1970s, Washington secured key producers, not least Saudi Arabia, to price oil only in U.S. dollars, creating the petrodollar system that anchors American financial power. I want you all to understand that the fact that the petrodollar has an influence globally, it puts us in very, very powerful positions financially, but it also allows our economy to function very, very smoothly. When certain countries are vocal about selling oil other than US dollars and currency, we aren't too happy about that. So now we know Venezuela oil sanctions and regime change. And so there's some history there. It says by 2010s, Maduro government, and we know he was taken by the US government, was openly pivoting its oil sales towards China and other partners. In January 2019, Trump administration slapped harsh sanctions on Venezuela. So there's the warning before the destruction. U.S. officials and experts agree that ending the old oil for debt swaps precipitated Venezuela's economic collapse. Now, in January 2026, the U.S. dramatically escalated its intervention. A covert military strike seized President Nicolas Maduro and brought him to the New York for drug trafficking charges. Okay, now that has nothing to do with oil, but they said for the drug trafficking. The next big military regime change after Iraq in 2003. Americans themselves took to the streets to protest. Now, as we go a little bit further, we see that, yes, Venezuela had issues. And then now let's look next. Iran, sanctions, proxies, and alternate currencies. Iran has a longer record of confronting the dollar. In fact, the U.S. even overthrew Iran's government in 1953, and after it nationalized oil, a coup aimed at keeping Iran's oil and currency within Western control. As you see the history here, anytime countries threaten that petrodollar and the economic influence we have on the world, there is violence that follows. In 2025, President Trump tore up the nuclear deal and reimposed maximum pressure sanctions targeting Iran's oil exports. Despite that squeeze, Iran's oil is still finding customers, mostly in Asia. U.S. Intelligence Commission reported 2025 that China now buys roughly 90% of Iran's oil exports. This goes back to what I talked to you all about the Strait of Hormuz and it being very, very important that it be reopened so that different countries can get their oil and certain countries can make a bunch of money. Now, do you all remember the president talking about Greenland a while back? So, Greenland, rare earths, and strategic island. Greenland might seem far afield from oil wars, but the island has become a new prize in this global game. The U.S. has long treated Greenland as a strategic outpost as it secretly took over Greenland in World War II to block Nazi advances. In 1951, signed a defense pact making Thule in northeast Greenland a key U.S. Air Force base. Now, so once again, a lot of this, we see that there's a shift trying to happen. And basically, Tony Sherman has kind of touched on this. In all three cases, interventions come at a time of intensifying great power competition. China and Russia benefit from U.S. sanctions on rivals. For example, Venezuela's alliance with China and Russia now looks like a foretaste of a broader split. Now, let's go back to the point of what we were talking about. Is the fact, and I want to make sure I can see your comments, is the fact that the petrodollar economic impact on the world is powerful. And it helps the U.S. economy go, function, flow, helps the U.S. economy circulate the dollar. It helps the U.S. economy with its inflation issues, keeping the cost of certain things low. And so the government is vested in keeping that petrodollar very, very strong around the world, and could potentially do whatever it takes to keep that foothold strong. Now, what's interesting is many countries are slowly coming around to trying to bring change about the petrodollar, so that way it's not in favor of America. Now, one thing that's interesting is we learn in America, we learn in the world that things slowly change over a period of time. There was a time where we had phones at our house that we used, or there were rotary phones, and eventually we went to cell phones. Things just change over time. There was a time where people would communicate through writing a letter, or people rode horses from A to B, or they walked. But now we have cars and we have planes. I want y'all to catch what's going on here. There are times where you have empires that reign, that are in place, and over a period of time, different empires come next after one. So after another, depending on how the rise and the fall of each of them go. At one point in time, there was something called the Babylonian Empire. The Babylonian Empire fell, and then we saw the Medo-Persian Empire rise. The Medo-Persian Empire rose for a while, and all of a sudden Alexander the Great comes, and this Greek empire comes in place. And all of a sudden Alexander the Great, he passes away, his 4 generals take charge. And you still have this strong Greek empire that is moving, but eventually it falls, and then we have the Roman Empire. What am I saying? Things come and things go. Things come and things go. At one point in time, people used to look forward to getting their Sunday morning newspaper. The newspaper. Things were printed out in newspapers and in magazines. And now things are digital. Many times you look, and if you want to watch the news or hear something, you may cut on a video on your phone, you may cut on the news, or you may read an article on your phone. It's all digital. Social media. The newspaper doesn't have the power that it once had. The radio doesn't have the power that it once had. So when it comes to the petrodollar, it is possible. When we talk about ebbs and flows and the rise and falls, it is possible that the U.S. petrodollar may be experiencing a newspaper effect. Are all newspapers around the world, newspaper companies, extinct? No, there's still a few. But over a period of time, its influence and ability to function and flow has dissipated from where it once was. Newspaper companies don't sell like they used to. They had to make adjustments. And so what I believe is going to happen is the petrodollar and its economic impact on the world, there are going to have to be adjustments made so that America can continue to keep the same strength and influence financially around the world. Because if it loses that strength and that power, it's going to impact us greatly. The cost of houses can go up exponentially. The cost of gas just to get around from point A to point B is going to increase exponentially. And so your dollar is not going to be able to stretch and expand as it once was able to before, which is why, my people, I tell you all to find creative ways to make your dollar stretch. Find creative ways to invest in asset classes that help you hedge against inflation, because you cannot solely rely on the money that's sitting in your bank account to sustain you long term, because it is constantly losing value by just sitting in an account. Now, if you have an emergency fund, that's fine. It's an emergency fund. But long term, you can't put all your eggs in your checking account basket. You have to be creative financially and hedge against inflation and invest your money wisely. Be strategic about what you do with your funds, especially my young people. Don't overspend, because you, more than anybody, my young people that are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, this is going to apply to you more than anyone that I'm speaking to on today, and the economic impact of this petrodollar, and if it's going to have the newspaper effect to where maybe it doesn't have as much influence as it once had. There's going to be some adjustments made. You know, at one point, America used to be on the gold standard, and then it became the US dollar. We've talked about this before. I don't have time to dive into it today, but these are some of the things that I want you all to think about. So what are you doing? What are some of the initiatives that you're taking to increase your cash flow, to make your financial position strong in 2026? You have to be in the right environments, and you have to be in the right rooms and the right conversations, just for accountability alone, just to be motivated to continue to fight the good fight financially and to make the right decisions. Don't allow people access to your ears that are going to be wasteful with their finances, that aren't trying to encourage you to do the right thing with your finances. Now more than ever, we have to be very, very strategic with what we do with our money, with what we do with our income. The government is going to do what they're going to do. The geopolitical issues are going to be what they are. But we have to stand strong in how we handle our finances and how we steward our money. We have to, like the United States, creating their own economy to circulate its dollar so that it can stay strong and have financial impact globally. We locally have to take the initiative and figure out how to do business with one another in our own circles, in our own communities. Because the mom and pop shops, those local companies, they're going to get up out of here. They cannot sustain and maintain themselves with inflation and the things that are going on. They can't continue to hire people. They can't continue to reinvest or borrow money to grow the business, because interest rates are so high. It's hard to be able to pay that back. How can a mom and pop shop go borrow money from the local bank at 7-8% interest, a commercial loan, something like that, and then be able to pay it back if the local economy and the people that are locally don't go to the mom and pop store or business and spend their money there? If we go to, and nothing against the chain stores or things like that, but if we go to the big name brand stores and we give them all the money, mom and pop shops become extinct. And so the mom and pop shops or the businesses are those same people that go to church with you, that go and sit down at the basketball and football games with you. They are your neighbors. The mom and pop shops, the local entrepreneur, the person who makes t-shirts, the person that cuts grass, so on and so forth, the guy who repairs things in the neighborhood, the local plumber. All of these people, we help circulate the dollar in our economy. The people that you worship with on Sundays and Bible study with, that you go to the PTO meetings with. When these big businesses come in place and we spend our money there, they take our money and it leaves the local community as a whole. Yes, they probably pay property taxes and things like that. But we have to creatively figure out how to support one another and how to make sure that we keep our economy strong, that we put measures in place, that we strengthen ourselves so we don't have a newspaper effect across the board. But I appreciate you all tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Hopefully, some of this made some sense to you. Hopefully, some of this kind of sparked some thoughts in your mind of what's going on in the economy and why it's so important for us to be very, very proactive financially, to make sure that we take care of business, that we do what we have to do on our end. So I appreciate everybody tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. And also, I want to remind you all here on Coach Steele's Finance Training that we are still supporting mission in Cameroon, Africa. And I appreciate everyone that continues to support. And one of the easiest ways that you can help me support the missions and the work that's going on in Cameroon, Africa, is by subscribing to my Facebook page. So if you go to my Facebook page, and it's under my name, Simon Steele, you'll see my picture. If you go to my Facebook page, and you can of course follow the Facebook page, but what I want you all to do is click the link. There's a pinned video at the top of my Facebook page. And let's see if I can share my screen so you all can see some of what I'm talking about. What are we doing in Cameroon, Africa? So we're doing a few things, guys. We are feeding those that are hungry. And take that off. There are some people that can't afford medical attention. So we're also making sure that they can be medically taken care of as well. And there are some people that don't have clothes or shoes, and we make sure that we get those young kids clothes and shoes. And what I'm asking you all on today is go to my Facebook page, and there's a link on there. There's a video, you'll see Cameroon, Africa, or if you go to any post on my Facebook page, and it'll show you, it'll say something about Cameroon, Africa, and it'll say subscribe to my Facebook page. So when you click that link, okay, let's see. me stop sharing that. But did have a little bit of internet connection issue for a second there. So I appreciate you all being patient while that was going on. Let's see if it will restore itself. Let's see here. But appreciate your patience while we're dealing with whatever internet issues that we were dealing with for a second there. Rather odd. Cut that out. But once again, you can always go to the live to my Facebook